Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Long Live Baseball. When Mike stops creaking around in the corner there, we will talk about the news around the league, both Cardinals and Cubs and otherwise. We're going to talk about the shift band. We'll have a tweet of the week for you. Of course, we'll have Mike's dictionary segment, and then we will end today with bold predictions. But Mike, did you know that Dalmatians are born without spots? They are born with plain white coats, with their first spots appearing after they are 1 week old.
I had no idea. None whatsoever about that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's true. That's a true story.
That's interesting.
That's what I thought. I mean, who knew Cruella DeVille had to wait, at least a week for those puppies to get their spots on their coats before she could, do whatever she had to do with them.
Well, and the thing that I wonder is all of the fire stations throughout the country, are they like when they get the puppy, they're like, no, that's not the kind of dog we wanted. And then a week later, they're like, no, it is. Now, as on cue, my dog is now going to start barking uncontrollably at the mailman who's outside because we started the show. And so it's been a perfectly quiet morning in my house, nothing going on. I've been drinking my coffee, been having some breakfast, been arranging my, I don't even know what I call this, my
studio
arrangement studio. There you go. And now the dog will start barking. And scratching at the door, very likely, as well. Yeah, because the show's going.
Of course. I'm surprised that my dogs aren't doing anything. They're just dreamily laying down on the couch right now. So it'll give it 10 or 15 minutes, and they'll be begging to go OUT.
Yeah. When's the mailman show up?
Oh, who knows? The postal service is very infrequent, so these days I think they're a little bit understaffed. So
I think they are too. We went a couple days there without mail.
Yeah. No, that's pretty regular occurrence for us. But do you have some grievance that you want to get off your chest before we start here?
A grievance? No, none whatsoever.
All right, because you were talking at the beginning of the show, like you had, it's like we have to talk about podcast etiquette. And,
no, it wasn't anything really etiquette. Etiquette was probably the wrong word. I guess you've got this pretty cool setup. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been working a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yours is really good. If you no, of course, on the podcast, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see what we're talking about, but on the YouTube, Mike has a nice backdrop with bobbleheads and a photo and a bunch of Cubs memorabilia back there. So
yeah,
really,
and really, I probably need to work more on the technical aspects. I mean, and it may just be your natural pigmentation, but the lighting in your studio to me is, maybe I should say your natural lack of pigmentation.
There you go.
I saw the kind of the sour look on your face when I mentioned.
I have never been complimented on my pigmentation ever.
But the lighting in your studio is extraordinary. It seems to me.
So? I do have a light, like a ring light, but that's about it. There used to be a lot of natural light that would either be really, really good or really, really bad. If you remember on the older episodes, I used to be positioned at the front of the room, and then the window back here that I'm pointing at right now, if you can see on YouTube, would just shine an angelic light through that was completely unbearable at times. That you could barely see me. It looked like I was appearing out of a cloud, which could be good or bad. But we fixed some things since then. So
now that you mention it, this side of my face is brighter because the window is over here. So but here's the thing. I got for Christmas, I got myself these LED growth lights for my my plants. And And so I thought, well, maybe I'll try to use them in the podcast. So I've got them hooked up here and there. So I need to get, that's one of my things that I'm going to be shopping for is lighting. And I don't know, I feel like we're getting professional about this or something.
Well, we're trying to, not because we're professional by any stretch, but because,
Oh, good Lord, no.
I mean, I don't know. But anyway, should we talk about the baseball, Mike, or
Yeah. Here's my first baseball question for you is this. What do you do with banners?
With banners,
Pennants,
such as that?
Pennants.
Oh, well, you can hang it on the wall just about anywhere. How many of those do you have?
I don't know. I've got a few. I mean,
Okay. I mean, you can hang them up everywhere. I mean, I wouldn't personally recommend, hanging up those particular ones, but you're a Cubs fan, so you can do whatever you want to do.
do you go vertical or horizontal? Vertical.
Well, I think with the W, if you hung the W upside down, it might look like an M, which might be confusing, and it might look like I broke in there and replaced it with an L.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess I guess you might want to hang that one, vertically, or yeah.
Do you have any pennants that you pennants?
I don't really. I'm not a huge pennant guy. That's not my first stop in the if I'm getting a souvenir, it's typically like whatever you get in on the way in, or I get a jersey or a hat. I'm not a huge all the bobbleheads are giveaways back here.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, you got a nice one there in the middle. I see that.
Yeah, that's you had that one for a long time for some strange reason.
Yeah,
in your house.
Is that the Purina one?
Yeah, it's the Purina Paul Goldschmidt bobblehead back there.
I improved that. There's
NL MVP. I improved it as well.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I took your photo out of it. That was you cut a photo out of yourself.
I send you a gift and you changed the photo?
Of course I did. It was you in a Cubs hat. Standing next to Paul Goldschmidt.
This no longer is going up on my wall. This is no longer.
You cut me out of that picture.
The best part of this photo is what's going on there. This guy's like,
I told him he should have pitched around that guy.
Screaming at his wife.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right. People that are listening only on the podcast are missing out on so much. They've got to look at the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I'm more of a visual artist. I'm just saying.
Yeah, long live baseball on YouTube. You can check us out, the podcast on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. I do this thing called there's an app called Podcast Republic. I found us there as well. I think if we're listed on Spotify, we're listed on a lot of other different platforms as well. But let's talk about this, Mike, because this has me all upset and makes me want to shout conspiracy with my tinfoil hat on. Right. You know how the Cardinals were interested in Sean Murphy, right?
Who wasn't?
Yeah, and one of the better catchers in baseball. I read that one of the better offensive catchers and defensive catchers combined. And the Cardinals were supposedly interested in this guy, but the A's asking price, according to sources, was way too high, where they were asking for major league level talent, including the player who finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting and Brendan Donovan. And they were asking as well for Lars Nootbaar, who we'll talk more about Lars Nootbaar later in the show. So basically they were asking for two people or two players the Cardinals are going to depend on this year. I think Lars Nootbaar is going to he's going to start in the outfield to begin the season at the very least. And Brendan Donovan's for sure going to start at second base, and he'll play in the outfield as well. And then, the Cardinals signed Wilson Contreras. And then the next thing you know, Wilson Contreras, this pretty good catcher that used to play for the Cubs. And then the next thing you know, the A's trade Sean Murphy. But do you think they got any kind of major league talent? When you look at what they received for him, it's all of a sudden, it's like, athletics. What on earth were you doing? It's not exactly major league talent that they got back, unless you count Manny Pena, catcher, 35-year-old catcher, by the way. They received Esteury Ruiz, Kyle Muller, Freddie Tarnok, and Royber Salinas. And all of those players I just mentioned, outside of Manny Pena, are not major league ready prospects. And they're really, if you compared what they were asking from the Cardinals to this, I cannot believe that the A's wouldn't have gone back to the Cardinals and said, okay. Well, we like your prospects better than some of the other. It just seems like somebody was trying to spin this story like the A's were asking for. Oh, nope, we need Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar. Well, what about Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar? Take it or leave it. And then the Cardinals finally said, well, okay, no, and signed Wilson Contreras. And then the A's were like, well, we got to trade him to somebody. No, you didn't. You didn't have to. You had several years of control left on Sean Murphy's contract. And then in this whole deal, the Brewers somehow wind up with William Contreras, who's, if you look at the numbers, is like his brother, but younger, with a couple years of control. And so somehow in this whole deal, the Brewers get a really good catcher in William Contreras. The Braves get Sean Murphy. I don't know. Like, this is one of the more strange deals I've ever seen, especially considering what they were asking for the Cardinals and what they ended up getting from the Braves. What did you think, Mike?
Well, I think the Cubs factor plays into this, and we talked about the Cubs player, former Cubs player thing I think on the last show, but the fact that Wilson Contreras was available, I find it very interesting, and I'm just being honest, like, that Wilson Contreras went to the Cardinals is an interesting move to me in the big picture anyway. And I think that impacted the Cardinals front office decision-making when it came to who they were trying to get as a catcher. In that they look at Contreras, World Series winner, all the dynamics that come with getting him from the Cubs, maybe even looking back into the past with Lou Brock and, just things like that. And that affected decision-making. When you look at some of the statistics that come with Murphy, 235 batting average. Okay. Okay. But the defensive side of things, he's in the 94th percentile in pitch framing. You did not get that in Wilson Contreras, right?
That's
you
true.
got a bat. You definitely got a bat. And so, yeah, this whole deal was kind of out of left field. And I would say, though, that the A's, not knowing any of these prospects that they got outside of Pena, so I don't know. Is that an even in longevity terms? Is that an even trade? I don't know how old he is, but the A's got some pitching, and it seems like that when you throw those pitchers on the table, Everybody's looking for pitching because you just don't know what you're going to get when it comes to pitching, it seems like, you know?
Well, here's my thing, if I can interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the Cardinals could have blown this offer out of the table. And I think it sounded like, if the Cardinals are to be trusted and they're not just trying to, pretend like they're not interested in Wilson Contreras as their first choice, which could be possible, like you're talking about. I think the Cardinals could have they could have far exceeded this offer and would have been comfortable with it, especially considering the contract that Sean Murphy signed. Did you see this? The contract, the extension that he signed last night?
No, I did not see this.
Okay. I will pull it up just to confirm, but I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 years, like $87 million, like very.
Oh,
like
wait. You're talking. Yes. He got an extension before. Yeah, he got an extension when he signed his contract. It's a 1-year extension. I did see this.
No. Here, I'll put it in the show sheet. I should have put it in last night, but this literally happened last night. I got an alert. The Braves signed a contract extension. So Sean Murphy had a couple more years of control because of when he was brought up, and you would know that because of the whole Chris Bryant thing,
Right.
6 years, $73 million with a club option for 2029. And it would make him an unrestricted free agent in 2030 when he's 35 years old. Now, I find that very interesting that he signed for less money than what Wilson Contreras signed for at a younger age. Now, I know it guarantees him a payday that he would have had to otherwise wait for 2 years to get. But I still find that very interesting that, in my opinion, this was the Cardinals' first choice. And if you're making the Cardinals give up Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan, they're going to say no. But if you would have asked for a couple lower level pitching prospects, heck, if you would have even asked for Nolan Gorman, I think they probably would have said yes. So I just don't understand from the A's perspective. And of course, everything in hindsight, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm happy with Wilson Contreras, and I think he's going to be really good for the Cardinals. But somebody's not telling the truth here, either, because I don't think the A's are dummies. I think they would have been willing to negotiate with the Cardinals, which makes me believe, like, with all this smoke that you hear about the Cardinals in the offseason, like, I remember going clear back to Eric Hosmer. Supposedly the Cardinals are interested in Eric Hosmer, to this offseason. Supposedly the Cardinals are the mystery team for Carlos Rodon. And if you're a Cardinals fan worth your salt, you know that that's just a bunch of hogwash. And so I don't know what to believe, really, because the Cardinals do play this meta game where they, pretend to be interested in players. So I don't know if they were just interested in Wilson Contreras the whole time, and we're just like, oh yeah, the A's were asking for, whatever, Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar, and obviously we couldn't say yes to that. And then even a fan who doesn't follow this closely is like, oh, Brendan Donovan's really good, yeah, we wouldn't want to give him up. So I don't know what to make of this, but it seems like a really good move for the Brewers and a really good move for the Braves, I guess, to lock up a really good catcher for this long.
And hasn't Atlanta done this before? Now that you're talking about it, I'm kind of looking online, and I think I misunderstood when I looked at it last night. A $73 million 6-year extension plus a club option for the 7th year. And then I think, if I remember from my reading last night, he's donating 1% of his salary to the Braves Foundation or something like, or something like that, which is kind of an interesting dynamic. But
yeah, that is kind of an interesting.
Yeah, dynamic. Something I've never kind of heard of. But when you think about it, $73 million includes a $15 million club option with no buyout. So they're going with him for the long term. I mean, that's bottom line.
They identified him as a clear upgrade because you do not make that move, right? You don't make that move unless you think he is a clear upgrade from what you have. And likely that would mean, I'm guessing, and this could be a good segue unless you want to talk more about this.
I do want to talk more about this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I won't. It's always hard to time a segue with Mike Jones because then you come up with the perfect segue and he's like, hold on a second. And you're
exactly.
Like, great. Okay. It likely meant that they couldn't sign other players that may have signed with other teams. There we go. Yeah. Well, so what else do you got to say about? Because I'm pretty fed up with this whole thing, to be honest with you, because the Brewers, I do not like the Brewers. I do not like them. No, I don't. And I think the Brewers get better. I think it was a savvy move on their part because if you look what they gave up in this whole deal, I don't think they gave up hardly anything. I don't even know if the Brewers really needed to be involved in this trade. I don't understand it. Like, why not just send William Contreras for Sean Murphy? You get a younger catcher who has more years of control, and then maybe you can ask for a pitching prospect. Like, why even include the Brewers in this at all? I guess it's maybe because if you want more pitching prospects than that, and if that's your sole focus. But I don't know. I think this is a terrible deal for the A's. I think it's great for the Brewers, and I think it's like, you got an upgrade if you're Atlanta, but I don't think you needed to do it because you already had a pretty good catcher in William Contreras. Clearly, they disagree with me. So whatever.
Well, I mean, when you look
at Milwaukee, whatever.
Listen, though, it all had to do with pitching. Let's not kid ourselves. How many pitchers traded hands in that 3-team deal? I mean, the A's got 2 pitchers. The Brewers got 6 pitchers. It just.
Well, they got a couple pitchers.
Maybe it's the other way around. The A's got a ton of pitchers.
The A's got like 4. The A's got 3 pitchers, an outfielder, and then a starting caliber major league catcher.
Yeah, and so it has to do with the pitching. Right. I mean,
I guess so.
Yeah. But here's the big thing. So he's 28 years old. He'll be 35 after 7 years. And maybe I'm just too big on bet. I mean, when I look at a 250 bet, like last year, he batted 250 for the A's. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Okay. But then you look at some of the other stats, 18 home runs, led all American League primary catchers in hits with 134, doubles with 37, RBIs of 66, total bases of 229, and ranked second in home runs and runs scored. Completed a career best 5.1 WAR on the season, highest for a qualified catcher in the American League, trailing just JT Realmuto for most of the majors. So, that's a good get for Atlanta. And then when you look at Atlanta, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna Jr., Spencer Strider, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Michael Harris II, Austin Riley, and all of these guys that they've signed through this almost makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, but 2027 is the earliest contract end of any of those players. 2027.
It's almost like the Braves are better than the Mets.
Yeah. Like when I was 16 years old, I thought I would, and, knock on wood, but, 2027 seemed like, I'll never see that year.
Yeah.
I
remember having that exact thought when I was in the 6th grade because my mom told me, you'll graduate in 2008. And I thought, oh my God, I'll never make it.
Yeah.
Like I might as well write my last will and testament right now and give it to my mom because I'm going to die before I graduate and of natural causes. I'll be an old man by the time I graduate high school.
No, but can you imagine the guy doing the starting lineups in Atlanta? I mean, it might sound something like this. Now batting Catcher through 2028, Sean Murphy. First baseman through 2030, Matt Olson. Second baseman through 2027, Ozzie Albies. Third baseman through 2033, Austin Riley. Outfielder through 2032, Michael Harris II. Outfielder through 2028, Ronald Acuna Jr. And starting pitcher through 2029, Spencer Strider. Yeah. Seriously? It's 2023 next season.
Yeah, they got a good core, don't they?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Atlanta's really good. Yeah. And something I want to talk to you, like we should do team by team breakdowns, like what you're doing right now. Like, and then give our opinion. But I would almost tell you, and yes, there's some holes they have to fill, obviously, like with Dansby Swanson leaving. And Max Fried is somebody they have to either extend or look to trade away to get probably major league level talent. And that's a rumor that the Cardinals are interested in him, but whatever.
They've got him through 2024.
Yeah. That's true. So they could just wait. They don't have to do anything with him right now. But they did. And guess what, Mike? They did it the right way. They drafted and developed most, if not all, of those guys. Matt Olson's a free agent, and obviously they lost Freddie Freeman in there. But Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Sean Murphy they traded for, but their pitching is largely homegrown.
Vaughn Grissom, 2028. I mean, they've got a good 5-6 year window here that, man, I think our front offices could
take some notes.
I could take some notes. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, here's the deal. I'm just gonna try to do this, and we'll see if it works or not. Ladies,
they can learn a few things from Alex Anthopoulos. How do you say his name? I don't even know.
So Mike Jones correctly made a correct prediction yet again on this show, and his bold prediction was 100%. That the Cubs would sign Dansby Swanson, and lo and behold, Dansby Swanson is now a Cub, and he's in the thumbnail of this show. So Dansby Swanson to the Cubs, 7 years, $177 million, $25 million average annual value or salary. So Mike, I'm going to give you the floor with this one. What is your reaction to that news?
Well, considering, and I probably, should keep Carlos Correa out of this, but I think that the Cubs got, they keep saying Dansby Swanson's the number 4 shortstop that was available in the free agent market. And I think we got the number 1 shortstop.
Ooh, hot take.
Yeah, hot take. I really like, the more I look at the move, and it's like, I guess it's like any fan, Cubs, Cardinals, whatever. You're looking at the list and you're going, gosh, we could really. I'd like this guy. And then Dansby Swanson. Yeah, okay, we'll take Dansby Swanson. But now that we have him, Dansby Swanson's the best shortstop that's ever played in the history of the game. I mean, he is. I'm just saying that's how it feels. No. You start looking at his numbers.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Cubs. Here we go. Cubs analysis right here for you. Like best shortstop ever. Put him in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Famer, Dansby Swanson. Make a statue. He's here for 7 years.
Isn't that what a fan does? I mean, aren't you doing that with Wilson Contreras?
No. We have Adam Dorr on here to scold you.
Oh, well, yeah, and we're going to talk about Adam Dorr later, but and Ryan Thibodeau. Mm-hmm. But seriously, I think it's a great signing by the Cubs, and here's why. 2 words: Mallory Pugh. Do you know who Mallory Pugh is?
That's his wife, isn't it?
Yes. And she,
Okay.
I mean, that's why I was able to make the bold prediction. There was no question he was coming to Chicago. It didn't matter. I don't even think the signing mattered, like what they were going to offer him and everything else. I think he was coming to Chicago because his wife's playing there, and they're going to make a home there. They're going to make Chicago their home. And so that's why I thought it was a done deal then. So I love the signing. I think Dansby Swanson, the one factor that when you look at, and I don't know, I don't know these. It's not like I know these guys or anything like that, but I think Dansby Swanson, the more I read about him, the more I know about him, and all you got to do is look at how Freddie Freeman's son reacts when he sees Dansby Swanson. He is a class act. He's a good guy. To me, you can't measure that stuff, you know? And so I feel like they got not only a great shortstop who's going to put up great numbers, but they got a great clubhouse guy. They got a great leader, and he's going to get nothing but better as he gets older. That's my take on him. So I love that signing for the Cubs. You know, as far as the money goes, we've got the money. Spend it. If you can bring in guys like him, and I think we're still going to, you know, I hate to get ahead of ourselves, but I think we're still going to have 2 or 3 more moves that you're going to see even, you know, during the offseason here that are going to be blockbuster type things.
Yeah. Any concern at all that his career OPS plus is below average, which would mean that, you know, his OPS is, you know, he does have, you know, 277 average. He had the best year of his career last year, right?
Right.
All-star shortstop. He's, you know, he's another one of these guys that's, you know, 28 going on 29. But any concern there with that, or are you just over the moon that he's a Cub?
No, I really am over the moon that he's a Cub, and I just think he's going to continue to get better.
Okay.
He's going to age like fine wine.
But Wilson Contreras is going to be having a walker going out to the, you know, next year. He's going to be all washed up.
At the end of last, I got to tell you a story. I sprained my ankle this 2 weeks ago, and it is an ankle that's been bothering me since I was in high school. Like, because I sprained my ankle playing basketball in high school and in college. And so my ankles always kind of bothered me. And I don't know if you saw that Field of Dreams game.
Oh, yeah.
When Contreras sprained his ankle. But that ain't good for a catcher.
No.
And I really feel like at the end of the season last year, first of all, he played on it when he shouldn't have been playing on it.
Yeah.
He should have been taken out, and he shouldn't. They were not a playoff bound team. And I don't care if you're sending him off because his contract's coming to an end or not. With a commodity like him, they did, and I hate to say it, I don't think it was the Cubs organization. I think it was Wilson kind of demanding, like, I want to play. I don't think that was a good thing for him. Now, I don't know why I went down that rabbit trail talking about Wilson Contreras with Dansby Swanson. Can you figure that one out?
Yeah. Well, I let me just tell you, and this is a lesson to be learned for, you know, from a Cardinals fan perspective. Whenever the Cardinals say that they're interested in somebody, this is why I didn't believe the Wilson Contreras thing until it was, you know, signed and announced by the Cardinals. Because the Cardinals every year are interested in everyone. Apparently, they're interested in everyone. They were interested in Dansby Swanson. Do you remember this?
Oh
Do you
yeah.
remember this? Okay. The reason that that there was no, I knew it from the very beginning of the rumor. There was 0.0% chance that the Cardinals, and if any major league team wants to hire me as a consultant, you can contact me on Twitter. My DMs are wide open. All right. I know the Cardinals. I will give you every little dirty secret that they have, right? This is what they do every year. They tell you, hey, we're interested in this, or they have no problem being John Heyman's like mouthpiece, like to drive up the price. They don't care if they're not paying for him. Why would they care? So I don't know if what he was expected to go for, and of course the talks died down as soon as the Cardinals signed Wilson Contreras. Like I knew they would. They weren't going to sign Swanson even if they didn't get Contreras. But besides the point, we'll talk more about like how hilarious the Cardinals payroll is right now later in the show. But and why I put John Mozeliak shrugging. I still need to make the video of him on the trade deadline on this channel. We need to make some shorter videos. But the point is, I don't know if that drove up the price for Dansby Swanson at all. But this seemed like, compared to Correa, who we're going to talk about next, or compared to Trey Turner, or compared to Bogarts, this seemed like you guys were patient and it paid off, literally.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
That's what I thought. I thought 7 years, 177 million. Yeah, that's a crazy ton of money to pay a 28-year-old shortstop who just had his best year. But it was a need. You filled it. You can move Nico over to second base. You have the money. You're stop. Don't pretend to be this Tampa Bay Rays. This is what's driven me crazy about the Cubs for years. It's like, don't pretend like you're the Oakland Athletics in Chicago. Nobody's going to buy that. No fan worth their salt is going to buy that. And finally, they're doing some Chicago Cub things, but they're doing them in a smart way. They were patient. They waited, and they got the right opportunity. And, for better or worse, they capitalized on it. And I thought overall it was a good move. I think there are some concerns with him. The hard hit rate and the OPS plus is one of them, but I think you got a really, really good player you can plug into shortstop and forget about it for 7 years now. So
listen, with ranks among Major League Baseball shortstops. All right. Here are some numbers for you. Home runs, 4th with 52 over the last 2 seasons. 4th among shortstops in the majors. 3rd with 184 RBIs. 4th with runs scored with 177. Tied for 4th with extra base hits with 120. Total bases, 4th with 550. Dansby Swanson is an elite shortstop in the league. I mean, he is, and you hear 4th a lot as I'm going through those stats. But listen, I don't know what Carlos Correa's issue, and I know we're going to be talking about that here in a minute, but I will take Dansby Swanson after the physical, ready to go, over Carlos Correa. 2 teams scratching their heads going, I looked at the x-rays, got some questions about his longevity. Are we going to be, no, give me Dansby Swanson every day.
Yeah, no, I can't, disagree. I mean, I thought it was a good, makes your team better. But to talk about Carlos Correa now, I don't know what to say about this. I've never seen anything like this. And I think it's a really good thing that the Cubs were not involved with this guy, because it really seems like fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, right? With
Right.
Carlos Correa.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now the Mets are just, I think, the perfect mark for this, right? And we'll talk more about the Mets later. The Mets are the perfect mark for this because it seems like they're willing to do and pay just about anything to anyone to make it a perception that they're a World Series team. And we just talked about the Braves, who are in their division, and how good we think the Braves are. And oh, by the way, how good the Phillies are, who just made it to the World Series, who are also in the same division, right?
Right.
So it is no guarantee. I just don't know why you would ever do this. Especially when you looked and you saw what happened to San Francisco, right? You
Right.
saw what happened to San Francisco. Because when I saw that happen, you know what my gut told me? Oh, he's going to have to play another 1-year contract. He's going to have to prove it another year. He'll like it. Honestly, you know what I thought? Would St. Louis sign him 1 year, $20 million? I doubt it, but I thought it was possible. Would Chicago, because this was before Dansby Swanson signed, would Chicago sign this guy for a 1 year, 2-year deal?
Right.
Like, that might make some sense. But 11 years for a guy who has, what was it, an issue with his leg?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like below the ankle, I think ankle, or like he has a plate in his ankle.
Would you
Is what I
say
read.
ankle?
I think so.
Mm.
I could be wrong about that, but nevertheless, it's a leg issue that teams are, concerned enough. Even the Mets, who just seem to throw caution to the wind, concerned enough to where they're now negotiating this. And I think he's probably going to get most, if not all, of that $315 million from the Mets. And I think that this is, I would never do this. And luckily, the Cardinals are a team that would never do this either. So I will never have to worry about it so long as Bill DeWitt is the owner and John Mozeliak is the general manager, because they're never interested in a contract like this in the first place.
Right.
So thank God. I don't know. What do you think about this whole thing?
Well, let's just be correct on what the issue was. So,
right.
Carlos Correa, he's 28 years old, same age as Dansby Swanson, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. He required arthroscopic surgery to repair a fractured right fibula and minor ligament damage after he hit an RBI triple and his spike got stuck in a bag in June of 2014 when he was 19, still in the major leagues with the Astros. Okay. At the time, they said that his fracture was nearer to the ankle than his knee. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the big picture, 8 seasons, he had never gone to the injured list with a right leg problem. Right. And he's got a plate in there. So who knows what all that means? But I think, like me in baseball, my ankle sprain recently is taking longer and hurts more than I can ever remember an ankle sprain taking time to heal. Like, it hurts to the touch. It hurts the older you get. And I know these are professional athletes, but the longer recovery time and things like that, and things start to creep up. Like, I took a lot of charges in basketball when I was 16 years old. I think that's why my hip hurts now. Right? Like, I just think that, so in the big picture, I think that teams are looking at him and going, 28. God, yeah, he's these past couple years, but I don't know. Like he's getting a little bit older, and will this injury start to come to the top? Like, will it start to? And so, do I think listen, before we knew about all this physical stuff, I was saying, let's go after Correa. But, okay, cheater, injury. Do you want that guy, or do you want Dansby Swanson? Dansby Swanson, and I'm going to talk about this later in the show when we talk about our bold predictions, but just a little taste, a little hint towards that. Paired up with Nico Horner, I'm liking what I'm picking up what you're laying down now. Jed, I'm liking it. All right, yeah. Go ahead.
Do you remember a couple of years ago when baseball players who were 30? You remember last year? Wasn't it Trevor Story was having a hard time getting a contract? And I was like, I told you, I thought Trevor Story, my whole thing is going to be a Cardinal because of the Nolan Arenado connection. And I thought it would have been a really good fit in St. Louis. Now, Trevor Story didn't have the greatest of seasons last year. He hit 238, 50 or 16 home runs, 66 RBIs, and 350 plate appearances, 2.5 WAR, just about average OPS plus. That's on base plus slugging, for those who don't know. Which an average OPS plus is 100. So, and oh, by the way, he's 30 years old. I think teams just forgot this year. They forgot. To your point, oh yeah, players start to regress when they hit 30, unless they take really good care of themselves, like Paul Goldschmidt, and unless they're just freaks about their diet and they have a clean bill of health. And the Cardinals know this better than anybody because of the contract negotiations they were trying to work out with Albert Pujols. And we've seen what happened with, I don't know, the best hitter of his generation when he was 31 years old. He started to go downhill. Right?
Yeah,
so
yes.
What are we talking? What it's like they forgot, or they just don't care, or they're just throwing caution to the wind. I don't understand what's happening with Carlos Correa, because if I'm an MLB GM, I'm looking at this and I'm laughing so hard I'm about to tip my chair over. Like, are you kidding me? This guy wants how much money? No.
Yeah.
No, in the first place, to 14 years or 28 years or whatever the heck he wanted. No wonder this guy had to go to Minnesota on a short year. Like, this guy's delusional. He's not even really that good, to be honest. Like, how good is he? When he was 24 and 25 years old, he barely played in 70 games. He played 75 games when he's 24. He's only played he's played 150 games or more one time in his career. One time. What are we talking about with this guy? He's never hit more than 30 home runs ever in his career. How good is he? He's not that good. I'll say it. I don't think he's that good. He's not $300 million good. You got a very similar asset for way less.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we talking about?
And probably more dependable.
About with this guy? I don't understand. Like, it's like going to Harvard. Okay, cool. It's a college. Whatever. Like, why? Like, just because this guy's quote unquote the best free agent on the market.
There is the Illuminati factor with Harvard.
Well, he has Scott Boras, and that has a lot to do with it, I'm sure, as his agent. I don't know who Dansby Swanson's agent was, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair.
I just don't understand this guy. I don't get it. Like Pujols, I can understand. I know that contract was in 2011, so it was over 10 years ago now. But like, you want just as much as who do you think you are? That's what I would say. Like, injury aside, yeah, the injury is a huge concern, right? But who do you think you are? I don't know. I guess that's what these guys are getting.
And
these Trey Turners and these Xander Bogarts never won anything. Like, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, but so here's the deal, though. I mean, when you talk about Correa, and granted, the Twins are notorious. I mean, going back to the 70s, they're notorious for like not spending any money, right? But after the Giants deal fell through, Correa, Boris went back to the Twins and re-engaged conversations with them. And the Twins were like, no, we're not going up. We're not going to do this. So
sounds like my kind of team. Sounds like my kind of team.
But not only are you being rejected by the Giants, you're going back to the team that you just got done playing for, and they're like, And then the Mets come in and go up $27 million on their offer. And so I just, I read an interesting quote in regards to the injury with Correa, and I don't get it either. Because we've talked about this. God, there's so many things I want to talk about now. We have talked about this on September 20th. Here's the quote. He just hit my plate, Correa told reporters. I had surgery and he hit it. Just kind of felt numb, vibrating. So I was just waiting for it to calm down. It was a little scary, but when I moved, I knew it was good. Oh, okay. That was on September 20th. Okay, so how many times? Listen, I don't know if it's still this way in the majors because maybe they're starting to apply like the roughing the passer rule. But if I'm playing in the majors now and I hear a quote like that about a guy that I'm playing against, this game there, tags are going to be a little harder. Does that still happen in baseball? I don't know, but. I think the money, the offers, all that stuff are insane. We've talked about this time and time again on this show. What is the average length of a Major League Baseball player's career? The average length.
It's less than 3 years.
2.5 years. We're talking about guys that are like putting in these extended long careers. Pujols being listen. We all know that they're using different baseballs and they're pitching different baseballs to different people and they're, all that stuff, right? I mean, because, we talked about the middle pitches that Pujols was getting towards the end of the season. Come on. You can't tell me.
If Albert Pujols was in a Cubs uniform, you would not be saying these things, but go ahead.
All right, we'll go back. I regress. But seriously, 2.5 years is the average career of a Major League Baseball player. These extended contracts, and I know these guys are trying to get paid, and they're all of those things. Somehow, owners and managers have lost their ever-loving minds. I think one of the things that plays into it is the same thing that is affecting high school girls basketball across the country. Americans are not playing like they used to. So where are the up-and-coming players coming from? They're coming from the Dominican. They're coming from Cuba. They're coming from Puerto Rico. They're coming from Venezuela. They're coming from, right? And why is that? Because they're hungry. These guys are junkyard dogs. I was reading you've heard of the book Ball 4, right?
No.
Seminal, a book written by Jim Bouton. I can't say his name, about baseball. It's like an insider look at baseball. When it first came out, I was reading in there, he told a story about going after a foul ball. I think it was in Oakland when he was a kid, and he reached for the foul ball and he grabbed it, and another kid reached for the ball and grabbed the ball and took it right out of his hand. And his thought on that was, why did that happen? And he goes, because that other kid, I wanted the ball, but that kid, he needed it. Like he was going to get it from me no matter what, because he was, let's just say, like the junkyard dog. He was like the author that booting guys. Like, I had a nice, comfortable life in the suburbs. And the kid that took the ball from me, he was a junkyard dog, man. He was scrappy. He was going after. So I think that those things are playing into these big contract decisions as well. There are fewer players out there to choose from when it comes to the normal draft or the free agency or things like that right within our borders. I was going to talk about this on the show previously, and we'll probably have to talk about it on the future show too. But what I find interesting about the Houston Astros is the Cuban connection. They have a lot of Cuban players on the Houston Astros. They have signed a lot of guys coming out of Cuba. And I think, I don't know, that's a whole nother show probably. But I think that those things are impacting contract deals now.
Mm-hmm.
I think a Scott Boris's of the world are going to say, where are you going to find another player like him?
Yeah.
Where are you going to find a guy like him?
Yeah.
They don't exist. Where are they? And so these teams are like, yeah, we better get him, and we better get him now because we got to win now, like the Mets. And here, I know it's way ahead of the bold prediction, 88 games.
Yeah. No, that's about, I mean, is there any guarantee they win their division? No.
Yep.
No. I mean, you're counting on a 38-year-old Verlander. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. 38-year-old Verlander and Max Scherzer, who's also well into his 30s, to stay healthy and for the whole season. And you're built like a thoroughbred horse. You're not built like the St. Louis Cardinals. It's like, I read an article the other day, like, what are some weaknesses of certain teams, or I think it was a holiday themed article where it's like, what's a Christmas wish for each team? And for the Mets, it's like, oh, they need a 4th and 5th starter. Really? Okay. Yeah, that's pretty important. And, say what you want to about the Cardinals, but they're built for the regular season. They have 5 quality starters. They might not have a prototypical ace like a Verlander or a Scherzer, but they have 5 guys that you feel pretty good about throwing out there every 5th day. They do. You can't say they don't. So anyway, you got to get to the postseason before you can. Anyway, now you're right. I mean, there's no guarantee of any of that. Like, you're spending all this money, and we'll talk more about that later. And, and there's the point too, where I think that comes into play, the human element. Like, once you get that money, don't you kind of take your foot off the accelerator a little bit? Like, there's that part of it too. Like, that's just naturally human. And that's why the intangible piece is so important, right? You got to know who these guys are. You got to know who you're getting, who you're paying. And I feel great about Wilson Contreras giving him that money. I feel great about giving Paul Goldschmidt that money. I feel great about giving Arenado that money. Correa, I don't know. I don't. And you have this medical history.
Especially,
Seth, it just stinks to me.
You just spoke to the human factor, right?
Yeah.
And taking the foot off the accelerator, especially later in your career. And so when you're talking about that large of a contract to a guy who's got a previous injury and all of that later, and I'm not throwing shade at Carlos Correa. I'm sure he's going to go out there and play, but as guys get older, the Nolan Ryans of the world are are fewer and far between now, right? I mean, we're seeing some pitchers go longer into their careers, i.e. John Lester, the guys that you mentioned. But let's not forget that, like, even Nolan Ryan, he throws a no-hitter and is playing for the Rangers. We just watched his biography last night or whatever, some documentary on him. And all of a sudden one day he threw a pitch and his right arm was just dangling and it was over.
Yep.
I mean, who would have thought that the Rocket, what they call, that's not the right. Anyway, who'd have thought it, right? I mean, you talk about a tough guy, that picture of him with the blood all over his jersey and all of that. And one pitch, okay, over 5,000 strikeouts, but one pitch, and I knew I did something.
Yeah, you just never know, man. You never know at all. But yeah, we'd love to hear what you think about, you guys listening in the audience think about Carlos Correa. I think Mike and I's opinion is both that I think it's an unprecedented situation, and I think that you'd be insane to give this guy $300 million. And I know that's what the market is for Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, but I just couldn't. I think it's ridiculous. And the Mets and we'll talk more about the Mets, but I want to shift this to another topic, because I saw this trade go down and you think, not a very, who are those guys? And I just want people to be aware of this guy named Dalton Varsho, who was playing with the Diamondbacks, because honestly, I wasn't aware of him. And he was traded from the Diamondbacks to the Blue Jays. And the Diamondbacks, I think, got a pretty good return for him. And if you don't know who Dalton Varsho is, he is apparently one of the better prospects to come up through the Diamondbacks farm system. And he plays outfield, and he's also not just a catcher, but a really good defensive catcher as well. So a different kind of player that we've really never seen before, trading hands, going to the Blue Jays now, probably going to play outfield for them and, play some catcher as well, depending. But you talk about a utility guy. This is going to be an exciting player to watch, I think, in our game, and you should be aware of him. And, it's a good trade, I think, for both teams. I think it's a rare case where, the Diamondbacks got, including a Gurriel brother, they got back Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. from the Blue Jays. And I think the Diamondbacks are also going to be a team to watch this year to see what they can do, because, they've been in the cellar for a while, and they've been drafting these guys and developing prospects like you should. And hopefully, for them, they'll be a lot better this year, and this trade is going to make them a lot better. Do you have anything to say about that trade? Because I saw that come across the wire, and I did some digging. I was like, oh, this is a lot more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly enough, what we talked about before, a Cuban and a Venezuelan heading to Arizona for a good player. The Moreno, just looking at his stat lines and things like that, he's batting like 319, and I know he had limited at bats, I think. But Gurriel, he's probably the lesser known of the Gurriel brothers. Only, and it's interesting to me, probably because of Houston and the World Series titles, right? I mean, but they can play. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so, interesting trade. I think that Arizona did well in the trade as well. And so I don't know if you can say, well, it's a wash positionally, but definitely an interesting trade. And it'd be interesting to see what, like you said, this Varsho does up there in Toronto. But the D-backs did get, Moreno's 22 years old. Yeah, what do you have? 69. Yeah, 69 at bats, 319. That's a pretty good batting average for, I know limited numbers, limited sample size, but and then Gurriel hitting 291.
Yeah.
I'm a big batting average guy. And it's probably because of my age. I still think that number matters. But a lot of the sabermetrics folks would not agree with me. So
yeah, the hard hit rate and the OPS plus, I think, is the new batting average. But
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, good move I think for both teams. I'm
definitely
gonna be
one
interested.
to watch.
Yeah, I'm interested to see to watch more Dalton Varsho. I think the Blue Jays, who the Cardinals actually open up with this year at home, are going to be a really interesting team to watch this year, because I think that team has World Series aspirations, and they're obviously competing with the Yankees in that division and the Red Sox and the Rays. So that's a really good division too. So real quick, some signings to get the people caught up.
Hey, can I say one more thing about that trade?
Go ahead.
Before you transition, I'm sorry. The Gurriel brothers come from a baseball family. Like, baseball is their, and we know this about a lot of Cuban players, but their father was a huge Cuban baseball player as well. And so there's a lot of lineage that comes down with those guys. And to speak to the junkyard dog factor as well. So anyway, go on. Sorry.
Okay. So Chris Bassett signs with the Blue Jays for 3 years, $63 million. Good starting pitcher, 20 million. I mean, that's kind of what the market is for, like a middle of the rotation guy, basically. Andrew Benintendi signs with the Yankees, 5 years, $75 million. And the big one, Carlos Rodon signs with the Yankees. Of course he does. 6 years, $162 million. I think when we were talking last time, that the Yankees were the front runner and they got him. So those are kind of, some of the bigger free agent signings. And here we go. The Yankees re-sign Judge. They bring in Benintendi. They re-sign him, and then they bring in another pitcher. So the Yankees are doing Yankees things. So they're going to have a high payroll too. Not as, obviously not as high yet as the New York Mets, because I have a feeling the Yankees don't like to be second place in the news to their, what they consider their little brother over across the way there in the other New York team. So we'll keep an eye on all of the free agent signings and trades, but we have some other news for MLB fans. And if you weren't aware, the shift will look a lot different, and I will let Mike Jones explain how he feels about the new rules, which include bigger bases, limited pickoffs, a pitch clock, and this rule known as the shift ban. But I will let Mike Jones tell you about that.
Well, listen, I hate it.
Okay.
I mean,
I hate all, what is it, Mike? What is this ban?
I mean, it's the guy sitting in the front office. It's Rob Manfred. That's what I hate. No, I'm just kidding, Rob. Don't ban me from Major League. All right. Anyway, listen, I'm in favor of the banning the shift. I think that's going to improve baseball. It's going to make baseball more exciting. It's going to be good for the game. The bigger bases piece, after doing a little bit more research on it, I think it has to do with player safety. We've got bigger players that I don't know. Apparently they need bigger bases. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Carlos Correa the first time he runs down to first base with that plate in his leg. I mean, with a different base out there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to wish anything on anybody,
Lord.
But
Yeah.
that's an interesting one. And what was the other one that you mentioned? The pitch clock. I hate the pitch clock, man.
Pitch clock is
You, that,
dumb. I mean, we'll see how that goes and how they enforce that, because I've definitely seen like I've definitely been in the park when the clock they have between innings. I don't know how well that's enforced. I've definitely seen it tick down to 0 and they're still throwing the ball around the infield. So we'll
exactly.
see. We'll see how it goes, because that's going to be tricky for umpires too to
Yeah.
monitor that. It's almost going to be like a play clock in football.
Yeah.
So
I don't like the clock aspect of it. Just leave me at the ballpark. Let's play 24 innings. Hall of Famer Pat Hughes going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. One of his calls was I think a 24 inning game. These things are what baseball are made of. Like don't try to speed this up for me. I know you're trying to appeal to fans, but I've got ideas later in the show about how to appeal to fans that'll help Major League Baseball better than putting a pitch clock in. So I'm not a real big fan of that aspect. The band shift I'm okay with, and we'll talk about. I know you want to talk about one of the guys that's really going to benefit from that. From the aspect of the ban on the shift, and I've got something later in my tweet of the week segment that I'm going to talk about more specifically to the Cubs about that as well. So I'm in favor of the banning of the shift. The others, honestly, the base one, I could care less about, because I think they're keeping the distance. The distance is going to stay the same. The bag's just going to be larger, I guess I'm still trying to figure out. Yeah. Anyway, I've got some questions about that one. And then the pitch clock, I'm definitely against.
Yeah, I think if you play fantasy baseball, I don't know how much. I haven't played fantasy baseball in years, but maybe Mike and I should join a league or something this year. That might be fun. But
Yeah.
I think the player that is going to benefit, like obviously, I think Matt Carpenter from the Cardinals, former Cardinal, stands to benefit from this. But if you look at Corey Seager, and there's a good article written by Mike, I don't want to get this name wrong, but I'm going to. Mike Petrillo. And I can put a link to it in the show description too. He talks about how Corey Seager was the player who will likely benefit from this the most. And he writes here, quote, Seager is a great hitter, but he's a predictable one too. If you're hitting more pulled grounders than any other lefty, well, that's how you get shifted 93% of the time. And of those 107 pulled grounders into a full or partial shift, he managed all of 6 hits, a .056 average. And some of those were fluky, like when the shift worked, but the fielder just couldn't convert. So the short version, Seager likely lost the most hits because he hit the most balls into the shift. Okay. So obviously, if you can't shift and you're hitting balls where, baseball's all about hitting it where they ain't, right?
Right.
So if you're hitting it where they are, it doesn't matter how hard you're hitting it. And so a guy like Seager is likely going to bounce back in a big way because of this rule. And I am all in favor of it as well, because I think it both drives me crazy, because part of me wants to say, well, if they shifted on, maybe this is the old man get off my lawn part of me, like if they shifted on Stan Musial, he would have just slapped it the other way. Like you could be somebody that you can't shift against, would be my thing. Like, and
Right.
they've shifted against Matt Carpenter when he was playing in St. Louis, and he dropped a bunt down the third base line for a double, because nobody was over there.
Make him pay.
Yeah. And so part of me wants to think that, and the other part of me is kind of happy for players like Corey Seager, who just hit the ball hard and they're a good player. They just, are unfortunately unlucky to be a natural pull hitter, and it's hard enough to hit a baseball So anyway, I'm fine with all of it, and I think we can move on. Do you have any final thoughts about this?
Well, on the shift,
Uh-huh.
I'll bring up something later about it, just in relation to the Cubs. But
Okay.
I did add a link to the show notes about the bases thing. Just found this article, and so now I am opposed to the base size change.
Oh, so Mike Jones was in favor of it before he wasn't in favor of it,
If
and now
if it
he's not in
was
favor of it.
if it
It
was for player safety,
reminds me of John Kerry, but go ahead.
right? Well, here it is. I mean, according to the L.A. Times, this article in the L.A. Times speaks to. Well, now, of course, can I find it? Pitch clock, pickoff limit. I don't know how I feel about the pickoff limit, but anyway, it says that it's going to shorten the distance. It's going to shorten the distance between bases. They will now be 18 inches square. The bases will be up from 15 inches square, while home plate will remain unchanged. The difference will reduce the distance between the bases by 4.5 inches, which means that the famous 90 feet between bases is no more. No, I don't. What happens? So, are we going to put an asterisk by all the stolen bases? Are we going to? It's going to change the dynamic of the game to too much of a degree, I feel. Now, I'm sure they've tested it. But certainly they haven't tested it to the point of longevity over the course of time and what it does to the numbers. And it's probably going to be such a slow change in the numbers that people won't notice it significantly. But to me, I don't like the change in the game in that regard.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a drastic change to me with the bases. I think I'm more annoyed by the pitch clock. The pitch clock and the because the throwing limit, like throwing over to first limit, like if you use, obviously that brings in more strategy to, oh, I can't throw over every, 2 or 3 times because I'm worried about getting the pitcher ready in the bullpen. So what my questions are, and maybe I just need to do more research and look it up for myself. Okay, can you step off? Does that reset the pitch clock? Or if you step off, if you're having trouble with signs, does the catcher need to call time? And is that the only time the pitch clock resets? Because I think that can get really goofy, and I would just say I wouldn't do it, but whatever. We'll see how it goes. So I think I have more of an issue with the pitch clock. I don't. To me, I don't know if the base is really. It doesn't really do anything for me. I'm fine with it. If it's for player safety, we'll see if less players get injured over the next 5 or 10 years because of these bases. If they do, if that's the case, then great. But we'll see if that turns out to be true.
I think Major League Baseball is saying that it's about player safety, just so they can make the change to increase steals and encouraging more stealing, and bringing more action to the game. And so I think the player safety piece is just a bunch of BS. I think they wanted to change the distance between the bases to get more action.
Okay.
And I don't know. There's something about it. How long has it been 90 feet? I mean, hey, let's because Shaq can't hit a free throw. Let's move the free throw line up to by 6 inches. 4.5 inches. What?
Yeah.
To make it easier so we can score more points and bring in more fans.
But to be fair, I've always, and not to go down this road, but I've always thought that, if you are a team like the Cardinals or obviously Athletics or Tampa Bay, you have to play differently. You have to find an edge somewhere because obviously you're not gonna win, any spending contests, especially these days. Good Lord. But would this, I mean, if it's true what you're saying, if it's going to be a little bit easier, if you're going to have a little bit more of an edge to it, I mean, teams like the Royals, the A's, teams that have drafted for speed and athleticism, I think are potentially going to have a minute advantage. I just don't know how big of an advantage it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's going to change things all that much. I still think teams like the Yankees are going to be more worried about launch angle and analytics. And I think to an extent, all of Major League Baseball does, but I just don't know. We'll see. We'll see. If all of a sudden Tyler O'Neill has 100 stolen bases, then I might agree with you, but I don't think that's going to happen. So any final thoughts or words about the rule changes?
Yeah, just quit messing with the game.
All right. Fair enough. It's time now for tweet of the week. We don't have a jingle for this, but it's tweet of the week. Tweet, maybe like tweet-a-dee-dee, like from The Office. Tweet-a-dee-dee. It's tweet of the week. I think we just came up with one.
Let's listen to the head twit. Go ahead.
The head twit, which is me. All right. So my tweet of the week comes from Mike Kirkland. Shout out to Mike_Kirkland on Twitter. Go follow him. He's got a lot of good stats and information about baseball and football, all kinds of sports. So I have been hearing for a while now that Lars Nootbaar is the apple of every major league team's eye as far as the piece that they want in a trade if the Cardinals were to make a move for a starting pitcher. We already know that the A's were interested in him. And I thought, wow, really? And so obviously I can be wrong. I always thought Lars Nootbaar was a fine player. I didn't know he was potentially an everyday outfielder. But according to Mike Kirkland, he might be. Lars Nootbaar, he says, ranks 89th percentile in max exit velocity, 80th percentile in hard hit rate, 85th percentile in barrel rate or barrel percentage, limits swing and miss, above average above average walks and contact while being selective, clear path to playing time, possibly benefits from the shift ban. 53% of the time Nootbaar was shifted on, which is a 66-point difference in WOBA, or honestly, I'm not sure what that is. I think it's on base average something. So thank you to Mike Kirkland for shining some light on how good potentially Lars Nootbaar can be. I think I do think that he is a developing player still. I would caution against Cardinal fans getting excited about his everyday usage potential just because we have so many options out there in the outfield, including Brendan Donovan, who I think is an everyday player for the Cardinals at this point in his career. And you also have Nolan Gorman, who factors into the DH spot and second base spot, which could push Brendan Donovan to the outfield. And, oh, by the way, we have a guy named Jordan Walker coming up who could potentially also play in the outfield. So I don't know. And, we all know the Cardinals are high on Dylan Carlson, and who knows what Tyler O'Neill is going to do. So the Cardinals, again, this you would think, and we'll talk more about this later on, you would think that this would lead the Cardinals to make a trade to clear up some of that mess of prospect talent that they have. But Lars Nootbaar, potentially, now we are seeing why he might be one of the pieces in a potential trade, or a piece that teams are going to be really, really interested in acquiring from the Cardinals. Mike, what is your tweet of the week?
Oh my goodness, I've got several. I mean, you put 3 tweets here.
Week.
Do I have to pick one? I mean, I have to pick one.
Tweet of the week, not tweets.
Oh my
tweet
gosh,
of the week.
This is tough, man,
We can
because I want
talk
to talk.
about. We can talk. I'll do
No,
what.
it's okay. It's okay. I'll
No, we
find
can
a
talk
way.
about. We can fit it into like if it's Cubs related, we could fit it into
Listen,
like our rants at the end.
I've got to prioritize. All right, so I'll find a way to transition. First of all, Thibodeau and Adam Dorr putting out there. Roland's going to make the haul by the look of the numbers here. There's some tweets about that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, baby.
I want to talk about the kicker for the I'm losing my train of thought here. Matt Guy, the Rams kicker, who gets hit by a Russell Wilson pass to the sideline while he's sitting on the bench, and he actually goes to the IL because of that. Because FUTBOL football. And I really want to talk about how the Cubs have one of the most improved teams from non-playoff to playoff possibility, and also one of the most improved farm systems in the major leagues. I want to talk about that, but I think my tweet, oh gosh, and I really, really, really want to talk about the idea that all kids should be under the age of 12 should get into baseball games for free or a really reduced rate if you in any baseball game anywhere. That's how you improve fan numbers coming to the ballpark. Get kids to the ballpark to watch the game, to eat the hot dogs, to eat the nachos, all that stuff, right? But what I'm going to talk about, I think, in my tweet of the week comes from, see how I did that? Comes from the Into the Ivy podcast. Into the Ivy 23, give them a follow. Shout out to them. Which one of these Cubs is going to benefit most from the shift being banned? Cody Bellinger, Tucker Barnhart, Ian Happ, or Patrick Wisdom? The number one guy based on percentage of plate appearances shifted against in 2022 is a guy that we haven't hardly even talked about in the Cubs transactions because everybody's excited about Dansby Swanson, and that is the former MVP Cody Bellinger, who was shifted against 90.5% of his at-bats in 2022. With the shift no longer being allowed, Cody Bellinger is going to have a breakout season for the Chicago Cubs. It's going to be like he was a rookie all over again. He is going to have a heck of a year, in my estimation. Tucker Barnhart, 73.74% of the time was shifted against. Ian Happ, who's one of our holdover guys. He's a great player, Golden Glove player, all-star. 62% of the time was shifted against. And then Patrick Wisdom, 42%, which I don't think. Okay, and I'm just gonna say it. I think Patrick Wisdom is on a slow roll out of Major League Baseball. I think he's going to be one of the lower, career-wise. I don't know what his longevity is going to look like. But Cody Bellinger, 90% of the time shifted against. The ban on the shift is going to be huge.
Okay. So now we are. I'm just gonna say this isn't. This is we're getting to our Cardinals versus Cubs local hour of the show. We have a lot of segments. We might have to clean this up a little bit, but it's all good.
It's going to be a 2-hour show today. I mean, that's the bottom line.
So, and now this section on the show sheet just says Cardinals versus Cubs, and you've said a lot of things about the Cubs, and now I'm gonna talk about the Cardinals a little bit. And this kind of does. I'm cheating a little bit because it does incorporate some of the tweets I put for potentially the tweet of the week. But what I thought was hilarious is Spot Tracks tweeted out the payrolls for estimated payrolls plus estimated tax bills for major league teams. And the New York Mets, who we've been discussing throughout the show, are clearing away at $502 million Clearing away number one by almost $200 million. The two New York teams, the New York Yankees, are second at $310 million. The San Diego Padres third at $251 million. Philadelphia $245 million. Toronto fifth at $228 million. Atlanta sixth, $225 million. Los Angeles Angels $219 million, and the Dodgers are all the way down to number 8. Houston 9, Boston 10, Chicago White Sox 11, Chicago Cubs now at number 12. So what's hilarious to me, Mike, and I'm going to rant about this a little bit because I don't understand it. Like the Cardinals coming off of this NL Central Division championship, right? Win now mode. You've got the MVP on your team, a guy who could have won the MVP in Nolan Arenado if Goldschmidt wouldn't have had the season that he had. You have these guys. You signed Wilson Contreras, right? You've got all these young prospects. Oh my God, one of the best farm systems in baseball. You're set up so well. And the Cardinals, this team that's supposedly in win now mode, is spending less than the team that is supposedly rebuilding in the Chicago Cubs, even though now I think they're transitioning to adding some pieces that are win now pieces, like a Bellinger and a Dansby Swanson. But I think even Cubs fans would admit that the prospect system is still, you need to add some pieces to the farm system, and you need to develop some guys and to come up to the major league level. And I think maybe you're a pitcher or two away. Anyway, I digress because this is about the Cardinals and not about the Cubs. The Cardinals said payroll was going up. They bragged about it. It's like, oh yeah, we had 3.3 million people come through to watch Albert Pujols. And yeah, payroll's going up. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? As of this recording, December 28th, 2022, in the year of our Lord, payroll's not gone up. It's the same. It's the same. Thanks for nothing, John Mozeliak and Bill DeWitt. We are spending less than the Cubs now. The Cardinals rank number 16 and officially in the bottom half of baseball in spending. This, I don't know what to say about this. I think it's kind of disrespectful to the fans. I understand that free agency is out of control, and I get it, right? So the only explanation for this, in my opinion, is that the Cardinals have to have a move up their sleeve because they convinced Nolan Arenado to come back. And this is one of the biggest deals that nobody's talking about, by the way.
It's the non-deal.
On a 5-year deal with his contract that he signed, and now he's with the Cardinals for 5 years, $122 million. Think of how much money Arenado left on the table to come back to St. Louis. So John Mozeliak, either he really likes St. Louis, which he could, and he likes playing with Goldschmidt, who wouldn't, and Wainwright and all those guys in the clubhouse, which by all accounts, the Cardinals clubhouse is one of the strongest in baseball. And now they have Wilson Contreras. Great. We have a legitimate catcher to replace Yachty. That's awesome. But you must have either lied your butt off to get this guy back, or he just loves St. Louis, because outside of signing Wilson Contreras, you've done nothing. Nothing. And the Cardinals have one pitcher signed through 2024, and that's Steven Matz. So at the end of next year, we get through this year, the only starting pitcher that you're going to have under contract that's not named Matthew Liberatore or somebody that's coming up through the prospect division is Steven Matz. Wainwright, gone. Michaelis, free agent. Flaherty, free agent. I mean, what are we doing? What is the plan here? If the plan is to be cheap, I understand the plan, right? But now you would think if you say payroll's going up, then maybe, I don't know, considering you had record attendance last year and a television deal that is one of the best in baseball. And I know that there's been some news about that that's come out, but nothing concrete, nothing concrete to confirm any of that.
Semi big news, by the way, but go ahead.
But you would think that, I don't know, payroll would go up a little bit. And I get it. You got to find the right guy. And the Cardinals, it's hard to argue with their recent success, but this is why I was pushing for them to sign Scherzer. You know, like, I know the Cardinals are just, and this drives me nuts about the Cardinals. They just will not do it. They will not pay. They've think of all the things they've lucked into. They've lucked into the trade for Goldschmidt. Like, that was a great move. You can't. Oh my God, the Arenado trade, and he opts in for way less than you would have had to pay him on the open market.
He had no idea what it was going to look like this year.
Oh no, he couldn't have.
He did it well before all of the numbers started coming.
Yeah, because he probably thought, I'm 30, I better. Who knows? And I know he loves St. Louis, but you get those two things to happen. You sign Contreras for what I thought was a good deal, a reasonable deal. Now it's they will never pay $1.25 for $1 to get what they really need.
Okay, but
right, they won't ever do it, and it's like, where is all this money going? Apparently, you can't make any money in baseball, Mr. DeWitt. I guess you then sell the team if you can't make any. You can make a lot of money selling the Cardinals. That they're worth, I think, $3 or $4 billion. Like, what are we doing? Like, for a win now team, we've done great. We replaced Wilson Contreras with Yachty. Like, when are we ever going to do it? If we didn't do it when Albert was here, when are we going to do it? And the answer is never. Are we just always going to sit on our hands? Who knows? Maybe they'll trade. We have all these prospects, and I get it. Having prospects is great. But how many prospects have we seen come through St. Louis? Steven Piscotty. Oh, the next thing. Randall Grichuk. Dylan Carlson now. Nolan Gorman had his struggles last year. Who knows? Jordan Walker, we're excited about him, and Mason Wynn. We're excited about these guys, and we should be. But at some point, you have to make a move that is going to solidify yourself as a championship team. And when the Padres and the Phillies and the Braves and the Mets, for crying out loud, that are all and now the Cubs are doing it. The Cubs are spending money in a way that you're not willing to. And at some level, either piss or get off the pot. Either be a team that is going to be like these teams that are competing. And I'm not saying you have to spend $500 million like the Mets. That's outrageous. But can you make a move that tells me you're all in? Like, I don't know. I just one time, I want the Cardinals to go get that starting pitcher. And maybe they've got a plan. I don't know. But it seems like Mozeliak, you do to wake him up on the trade deadline day. You got to shake him and say, hey, we need a pitcher. Huh? What do we need? What do we need? A pitcher? Okay. Hey, Yankees, are you interested in Harrison Bader? Okay, good. We got a minute left. All right. Like, can I go back to sleep now? Like, that's what it feels like.
Hey, all I can say to your rant is it's the Cardinal way. I mean, here's the bottom line, though. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because, listen, the way that the Cardinals have done it through the years is not to sign this big agent name to get over the hump. It has been, we're the Cardinals. We build from within. These players come up. Nobody really knows their names, but by golly, we're winning. The signing that Arenado, Goldschmidt, those are not inconsequential signings. I mean, those contracts are huge contracts, and at reasonable price. At a reasonable price, I'm not saying they're spending a ton of money on it, but we're going to argue this. we've been arguing this the whole show. Do you have to? Would you like to spend $500 million, $300 million more than the Chicago Cubs to win 88 games? Would you rather do that in St. Louis? Because listen, St. Louis is they are right now the top team in the National League Central. Right now, they are the top team in the National League Central. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to lose in October. They're going to be out. Okay. What is the difference? It's pitching. It's got to be pitching.
Rinse and repeat, man. Rinse and repeat. You know, like over the last 2 years now, you know what you need. And I get it. It costs a lot of money. But if you go to the store, if I go to the store and my wife sends me out for milk, and I go to the store and milk is $10, but we need milk to make whatever she's meant. You bet your ass I'm getting the milk. I have to, because otherwise my wife's why didn't you get the milk? Well, because sometimes you got to pay for what you need.
Can't you use what we already got in the fridge?
You can't. We can't make our own milk. We don't have our own cows. Sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to. And this is borderline irresponsible at this point now because of the pitching situation. How long are they going to let this go? Now, I could see them extending Michaelis. That seems like a Cardinals thing to do. And oh, by the way, the Cardinals are only on the hook for $90 million approximately worth of salaries next year. So, yes, according to Spot Tracks, they're on the hook for $170-ish million, I think. But if you take a look at next year, Wainwright won't be on the books. Michaelis, Flaherty, they're going to have a lot of decisions to make on certain players. I'm not sure what the status of Paul DeYoung's contract is going to be up. So there's a lot of players that they're going to have to make decisions on, and it's going to be so interesting to see what the Cardinals do to try to shuffle around. I bet you they're probably going to try to sell the fan base on a Matthew Liberatore or a Graceffo or one of these pitching prospects that they're going to try to say is the next thing. But good Lord, I just would hope that you're not going to sit back with Arenado and Goldschmidt and be so reliant on those two guys, because we saw it in the playoffs. You just needed more depth in your pitching, and you let the guy go. You let the guy go who was starting the opening round of the playoffs for you in Jose Quintana. You let him walk. So who's your ace at this point? I don't know. Could be Flaherty. We could not. I mean, Cardinals do not have an ace.
What's Dakota Hudson's status right now? What?
It's complicated.
Yeah, I thought
because he's probably gonna come out of the bullpen because he's kind of the odd man out. Him and Matthew Liberatore, I think, are perfect trade pieces if a team wants a major league level ready starter that they think they can work with. But golly, it just drives me freaking crazy. It's like the guy who's 80 years old and he has $1 million in the bank and he's perfectly, it's like you're not taking it to the grave with you, man. Like, what are we going to do with all these prospects? We can't play them all. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they've got something cooked up, but Cardinals Nation is pretty. When that came out, the Twitter just went crazy with, we're the number 16 team in baseball and spending money. Do you know how many people came through the gates last year and blah, 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 blah. And I think they got a right to be ticked off here. And I think Nolan Arenado, who knows what they told him, but it's like, does he have he's sitting back going, what are we doing? We're doing nothing aside from getting a catcher.
He seems content. He seems content.
No, I hope so. But I mean, it's too late now probably because him and Goldie are, going to play together. I think Goldie's contract is a couple more years. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what they do, Mike, but it drives me loopy, especially when other teams are willing to pay money. Like the Cubs are always going to be the team that is willing to pay the money. They will be. This is why this like, and I'm not saying, like I said, and I feel like at this point I'm beating this like a racehorse, but the Cardinals just never do that. And I don't understand. Like I get, but it's not like they haven't dished out money before. I remember a terrible contract in Mike Leake. I remember they signed Mike Leake for like a ton of money, and it's just like why would you pay Mike Leake $90 million when you can go out and pay an ace? Like it's always like, oh, what can we get for 75 cents on the dollar? Well, maybe that's not very good. Maybe there's a reason why it's 75 cents on the dollar, right? Maybe there's a reason why. It's like, go out and get what you need, for crying out loud. You need an ace. Go trade for an ace.
How would you feel?
I don't care what it costs. Like at some point, this is what you need. You need this.
75 cents on the dollar. How would you feel if they signed Carlos Correa?
Well, they don't need a shortstop. They don't need it. They got Tommy Edmonds good enough.
Yeah,
they need an ace.
Maybe they'll put him on the mound. All right. So Cubs land. I suppose it's time to transition into Cubs land, and
yeah,
I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. I mean, I am looking at a single page right now, and that is the transactions page for the Chicago Cubs. We have signed free agent left-handed pitcher Drew Smyly. We've designated a lot of guys for assignment too, but we claimed Anthony Kay off of waivers from the Toronto Blue Jays, left-handed pitcher. Obviously, the Dansby Swanson move. Free agent left-handed pitcher Reyes Elias. We've signed him to a minor league contract. Free agent Sergio Alcantara. We signed him to a minor league contract, giving us some depth at the shortstop position, hopefully. Obviously, right-handed pitcher Jamison Talion, because you guys need pitching. We're signing them all. We're collecting pitchers. It's like, hey, let's see how many pitchers we can get into the system here. We signed free agent right-handed pitcher Brad Boxberger. That's a great signing that nobody's talking about because everybody's excited about Dansby Swanson. Obviously, Cody Bellinger, first baseman. We signed free agent right-handed pitcher Ronnie Lopez to a minor league contract. Left-handed pitcher Eric Stout to a minor league contract. Braylon Marquez, left-handed pitcher, to a minor league contract. And so, you know what? Adrian Santana, right-handed pitcher, free agent, to a minor league contract. I like what we're doing. I have whatever it is that the Cubs have going on in the pitch department, right? They've got some pitch lab or whatever the heck it is, and going all the way back to 2015, 2016, Jake Arrieta, got him from the Blue Jays, seemed like a washed up pitcher. Next thing you know, we're winning a World Series. He's throwing no hitters. They're doing something right in Wrigleyville, in Mesa, when it comes to pitching in the Chicago Cubs organization. I don't know that anybody's really talking about it, but they're doing something right. And it's also carrying over or bleeding into the bullpen. Think about the bullpen guys that have come through. We've talked about this on the show before. So I think there's a lot to be excited about in Wrigleyville. Not to mention, we're talking about the Cubs being they had the fourth largest jump. Let me get my facts straight. As far as, according to Sports Illustrated, the Chicago Cubs heading into the 2023 season, they've been deemed one of the most improved farm systems by Major League Baseball Pipeline. They had the fourth largest jump in improvement. So right there, you're talking about some excitement. We're not even talking about guys like Brennan Davis, Pete Crow Armstrong. There are more names out there. Mash Mervis, and also among those headlines, the Cubs being included in, let's see here, from non-playoffs to playoffs. Cubs fans, obviously, we came in according to, I guess it's MLB News, who's the author here. I want to give credit where credit is due. Anthony Castrovinci. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. But the Cubs being one of the most improved teams in that regard. Obviously, Dansby Swanson, some of the guys that we mentioned. Veteran Brad Boxberger, an upgrade for the bullpen. And in the last sentence of his article, they might just rank as the most improved team of all. And so there's a lot of excitement, a lot of things to look forward to this upcoming season, I think, for the Cubs.
Yeah, and that's another reason why the Cardinals should, push more of their chips into the middle of the table, because 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the Cubs are going to be just as good as the Cardinals, because our starting pitching might not be, obviously I already talked about that. We only have one signed through 2024. Goldschmidt's contract is going to be up. Arenado is going to be older. So now's the time. And I don't know what they're waiting for, but I digress. There's a rumor out there I'm going to squash. All right. Cardinals fans need to stop it with Brian Reynolds. It's not happening. We are not trading for him. We never do anything like this, and it's not going to happen now, especially not for a player that apparently the Pirates think is the second coming of Juan Soto, and what they're asking for compensation. And I don't know if this is going to be like a fake news athletics type thing, but it's not happening. We're not doing it. The Cardinals do not see this as an upgrade over what they have, and they're not going to do it. So they're not going to trade for Brian Reynolds. Get that idea out of your head, even though it would make a lot of sense considering he's a left-handed hitter. But I think the Cardinals view Lars Nootbaar potentially as somebody who's just as good, and could turn into a Brian Reynolds in the future. So that's not happening. I think if they're going to make a trade for anybody, it would be for a starting pitcher. Think of the Glasnow from the Tampa Bay, I think could be a good option. If the Braves were interested in trading Max Fried, that would be a really nice option. But they're going to have to do something about their pitching. I don't necessarily know what they're waiting for, because sometimes you can wait too long and then all of a sudden you're desperate, and that's not a situation you want to be in. So if I were the Cardinals, I would be proactive about this, but we'll see what they do.
Are you concerned at all about the Cardinals not?
Yes, I'm freaking concerned. I'm concerned that they don't know what they're doing. Maybe I just, because some part of me is like, oh, like, what do I have to complain about? Like, the last 20 years have mostly been winning. But then on the other hand, you think, has this just been a product of them getting lucky with their developing and their farm system, and Yadier Molina and Wainwright kind of carrying the team? And now that Yadi's gone and Wainwright's getting up there, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I don't know, man. I am not optimistic like you. You're always thinking the Cubs are going to win the World Series. It's a symptom of being a Cubs fan. You always think the Cubs are going to win the World Series. And I wish I could be that optimistic. I really do. But every year I head into the season with the Cardinals, and you just wonder at some level, if you're a Cardinals fan that watches this stuff closely, like, you're thinking, yeah, we do one great thing every offseason, but can we just do that thing that makes us the favorite, that puts us in the converse? Because right now the Mets are better, the Braves are better, the Dodgers are better, the Phillies are better. Like, we're probably like the 5th or 6th best team in the National League, even though we're the best team in the Central. And you wonder if the Cardinals are just fine with, we'll get into the playoffs, and, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen when you get into the playoffs. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but it sure is a lot better if you know who your ace is going into the playoffs, and it's not Jose Quintana, who apparently you had no interest in bringing back for God knows what reason, because that made no sense. So I don't understand it, Mike. I don't get it, and
Where's he going, by the way?
The Mets. The Mets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, this guy agrees with you. This Cardinals fan, he agrees with you.
Oh yeah, he's yelling at his wife. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we had an ace? And this bullpen that we are is so good. Apparently, our bullpen's so good, Mike, that we blew a lead in the postseason because we didn't have any depth in the bullpen that we felt comfortable with throwing out there. We felt like we had to throw Helsley for 2 innings. Our bullpen's so good, like we don't need to do anything about that. Like it's totally fine. Whatever.
Good.
And it's
anyway. It's the rich poor curve in the Cardinals organization, maybe, you're poor and you're poor, you're poor, but you think you're rich, and then you're rich, but you're rich, but then you think you're rich, but you're really poor.
And I don't like this game they play. They play this game where it's like, yeah, we're going to spend more money. And then they don't. And it's like, yeah, we're interested in Dansby Swanson. And then they don't. They're not. Yeah, we're interested in Eric Hosmer. No, you're not. Like, quit. Like, the Cardinals have no problem whatsoever being the mystery team in John Heyman's article, even though John Heyman just seemingly is like Scott Boris's puppets. Like, well, I don't know. The Cardinals might be interested in this guy, even though no team that has a brain in their head knows the Cardinals are interested in anybody at any time. They don't do anything. They just sit back and they're like, "Are you gonna take our offer or not? Like, are you gonna opt in or not, Nolan Arenado?" Oh, great, you will. Cool.
I'm surprised they didn't go after Arson Judge.
Arson Judge. Oh my! They're probably interested. Like they're probably interested, and if any play, like you could. I think that's an old trick. Probably is like if any reporter asks you, "Hey, are you interested in pursuing Aaron Judge?" The answer you would never say, "Nah, nah." We don't want him.
Nah, we don't want Shohei Ohtani. Nah.
Yeah, just get him out of here. We don't want good players on our team. Yeah, of course the answer is always we're interested in pursuing. We'd be interested in if the offer's right. Yeah, if we can give them a goat and a washing machine for Aaron Judge, then we'll be interested in that. If he's willing to work on minimum wage, we'll sign him.
Sure,
no problem.
Bring
him on over. Yeah, we'll take everybody over here because you can't make money in baseball. You can't do it, man.
No,
it's impossible.
No,
it's a poor man's business, and I just don't like all the wishy. Like I just don't like, just say like I wish. Here's what I would want. Here's what I want. I would want them to just say, "Yep, we're not trading for anybody, and we're not signing anybody. Bye bye, everybody." And then like that would make me laugh, and then that would not get my hopes up for them to actually do something. And I know they signed Wilson Contreras. I get that, and I was happy about that. But it's just like we are this close, man. We're this close.
That's it. That's the missing link. That's your savior, right there.
No, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. But whatever.
All right.
Anyway, that would be hilarious if, like, next offseason, it's like, we're going to suck. We're not doing anything about it. Bye-bye, everybody. We're going to spend the whole offseason in Ballpark Village with in our private bar.
But listen, I mean, you say that tongue in cheek, but you understand that that's what Cubs fans have experienced the last couple of years, right?
I guess so, but
hey, we're gonna suck. I mean, before Anthony Rizzo got signed, that we're gonna suck.
But it would be like though. You remember it would be like you guys have Rizzo, Bryant, Contreras, Baez, and you're not willing to go sign John Lester,
right?
That would be exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but the difference being, you guys don't suck.
No, we don't. That's right.
I mean,
we're a good team. It's a good team, but the frustrating thing is like with one more piece, you could look at it and go, yeah, they're just as good as the Braves, or they're just as good as, you
Yeah.
know, it just, if you added like 2 years ago when I was begging them, it's like Max Scherzer is a St. Louis guy. Originally, they drafted him out of high school, but he elected to go to the University of Missouri, for crying out loud. This guy would love to come home and play for the Cardinals and be that shutdown ace. And I know you're going to have to pay 30-40 million dollars a year, which I knew they were never going to do. Right. But now we wouldn't be talking about you need an ace. And guess what? You would still have all your prospects intact that you could go out and trade for whatever the heck you needed. And yes, your payroll would be 210 million instead of 170, 180 million. And you would be a little bit over the luxury tax. Probably not even over the luxury tax, because the luxury tax is 233 million. So you'd still be under that. You would keep your promise about raising payroll, and you would bring the hometown kid home to win a World Series with Adam Wainwright. How good would that look? How good would that be for business? How many more people would come through Busch Stadium?
Yeah, but hey, why do you need to do that? The Cardinals have the #1 ticket sales, attendance. Why make any changes in that regard? Here's what's happening in Wrigleyville. We went back to sucking, and ticket sales went down.
Yeah.
People were talking about before the Dansby Swanson signing. People were talking about let's not buy tickets next year. Don't anybody go to Wrigleyville, and that's a huge change, because I picked up a book at the bookstore the other day about ballparks throughout the country, and one of them opened up to Wrigleyville, which I always do. And you know what it said in there? Wrigleyville always sells out. Doesn't matter. The bleachers are always full, 5,000 fans, and plus everybody else that wants to be in Wrigley. And last year, it was not that way. I mean, I'm telling you, that makes a difference. But in St. Louis, we'll go watch them. We'll go watch them win the division.
3.3 million
and then
people.
We'll go to playoff games and watch them lose more games in October than the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah.
But, hey, we're division. We won the division. So they're good with that.
No, they're too content. That's the problem. Like, they're too content with that. And it makes you really wonder, are they trying to do everything they can do to win? And I would almost promise obviously they would deny this, and they would say, "Oh, we brought in Nolan Arenado." I don't know. Rockies paid you $50 million to take him because they didn't want him for whatever reason. I don't know, because now they have Chris Bryant on their team. You go try to figure out the Rockies, because nobody can.
Right.
Art Goldschmidt, again, sweetheart of a deal. Wilson can you're willing to win if, like I said, you're paying at cost or below cost.
Yeah.
So I've always thought this was with the Cardinals. Are you willing to do the thing that's willing to push you into the conversation with the Braves or the Mets and it would be, I mean, can you imagine if they had a legit ace on the team? That's the piece that they're missing. And I know that's hard to come by and expensive, but hey, that's the way it is. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and I thought Max Scherzer would have been the perfect guy, because he would have wanted to come to St. Louis. I guarantee it. And I don't know that for a fact, but he's a hometown kid. And I guarantee you that he would have, if the Cardinals would have offered the same money as the Mets would have offered, he would have been here. And they probably had zero interest in it, for God knows why. Because if that's the guy, if there's any guy, that's the guy. And it's, oh my God. Anyway,
they just didn't want
to get me worked up about that. I'm already worked up.
All right. So here's a big question mark, and we haven't talked about this at all.
Yeah.
Okay. When you talk about the pitchers that are out there and available,
and
we're talking about the Mets and the Cardinals, I'll throw the Cubs in there, but I don't think this will be the case. But what's going to happen with Trevor Bauer? Who's
Cardinals will not do it. I can promise you.
Well, but will the Mets? I mean, because his ban from the game, or whatever it was, his penalty, it was reduced by the courts and all that stuff, and he's available now. He could play baseball this next season. Not a lot of people are talking about him. Don't know if they'll have him in. Of course, and I'm not here to. Who knows all the ins and outs of everything that happened in regards to all that, but we had a guy in Addison Russell who's now playing baseball in Mexico, right? And kind of for the same reason. So I just think it's going to be interesting. But a pitcher is a different story, right?
Yeah.
Pitching is what we're all talking about. What will happen in that regard? I think it's just going to be interesting to see. Cardinals, we don't feel like they'll do it. I get it.
No way.
But would the Mets take a chance? I mean, obviously they're pushing the chips all in. You're in New York. Nobody cares what anybody does in New York. They piss and crap in the streets out there. I mean, it's really, I mean, seriously, I think that if anybody would potentially take a chance on him, it could be them.
I think either of the New York teams makes sense. I don't think he's likely probably not going to go back to the Dodgers. I wouldn't think. I could see the Angels, being interested. That seems like a weird team that would do that. And I think he likes the West Coast. The Cardinals are just too Disney to do anything like that.
Too Midwest.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I could honestly see the Cubs on the right offer. I mean, how would you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't think the Cubs would do it. Okay. I just don't think they would either.
I don't think the locker room thing too is there were rumors going around that, and rumors that
who knows?
He wasn't the greatest locker room guy, and he's got his YouTube channel on so I don't know any of that for a fact. He in his YouTube videos that I've seen is always pretty interesting content if you wanted to check that out, but I don't think it's a possibility for the Cardinals. I think it could be a cheap answer to their problems, which I think the Cardinals are always interested in cheap answers to their problems.
Right.
So on that level, I think it would, I don't think they're not talking about it. I think they're probably having a 5-minute meeting about it, but then it's like, well, how does he mix with, you look at everybody they've signed, right? Nolan Arenado, stand-up guy. Paul Goldschmidt, stand-up guy. Wilson Contreras, stand-up guy. Tommy Edman, Brennan, like all these guys are just class. You don't never hear anything bad about him,
right?
And I just don't know if he's a fit here.
Yeah,
and that's probably what the conversation would be with John Mozeliak and Bill DeWitt, and they would probably say, "Yeah, we also can't pay him, what he wants." So
bottom line is, what does he do to your clubhouse? I mean, and it seems like that it's those guys. Whether you're talking about Addison Russell or Trevor Bauer, they're, I don't know, canceled's probably not the right term, but just people have washed their hands of them, it seems. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting dynamic. We'll see if it continues to play out.
Yeah. To speak on the free agent market, there isn't really much left in free agency.
Right.
There are names like Corey Kluber is out there. I know he wasn't pitching the greatest. David Price, I don't think he has much left. Michael Wacha. I mean, there might be a name on here. Zach Davies. I didn't think he was ever that bad. Danny Duffy. I mean, there's some names out here, but I think all of these guys at this point are reclamation projects. There are names that the Cardinals could sign to a 2-3 year deal that could just be another arm that is available to them past 2023 into 2024 and 2025. But that, I think, is the red exclamation mark, like when your car has a problem. And that is the problem for the Cardinals right now, is the pitching rotation, I think, is set, aside from the fact that you don't have an ace. You don't know who your game one starter in the playoffs is going to be. You had to trade for him at the trade deadline, and then you let him walk. But which is strange. Isn't that just strange? Imagine, okay, this is what bugs me. Imagine if that happened to the Cubs, right? Your game 1 starter in the playoffs, you let him walk on a 2-year, $13 million per year deal. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
The Cubs fans would be irate. You can imagine what Twitter was when, like, during the years this past year. Like, imagine that, except, times 2.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Listen, the Cardinals have to have a plan. They have to.
I don't know. I think Mozeliak's just taking a nap in his office at all times.
Well, hey, is it that time?
Yeah. All right. It's the Dixon Baseball Dictionary segment of the show where Mike pulls out his dictionary and Seth gets his dictionary as well.
All right. I like it. All right.
Hold on. I got to go get mine, but you tell
me. Oh, man, you have to make a move. It's page 304 of the Dixon Baseball Dictionary. By the way, the bookstore, shout out to the bookstore that I found this book in, Burlington by the Book on Jefferson Street in Burlington, Iowa. Every time I pull one of these off the stands to purchase for a friend or myself, another one shows up in its place. So they know that they're going to continue to sell these to me. It's a great book. I'm on page 304 to 307. I will add, it's quite the long dictionary entry, but it's fan, an enthusiastic follower of the game of baseball, a devotee. This meaning was reflected in an article titled Fellow Fans in an article in Outlook magazine, June 13th of 1923. Quote, now the fan may be a rooter, but the rooter is not always a fan. The rooter is out to see his side or college or city win. The fan is out to see the game. And so I would say we fall in that definition of fans. We could read on and on and on about fans. There's a lot of good stuff there about fans, but hey, it's good to be a fan.
Yeah. Yep. Indeed. It's fun. Cardinals have given me a lot of memories over the years. Yeah, baseball's good. I love baseball. So
absolutely. All right. Bold predictions.
What's your bold prediction, Mike, for until we meet again or for the season? Or, I mean, there's really no specificity to this.
Yep. Cubs will make the playoffs in 2023.
Yep. I could see them definitely finishing second in the division with the Brewers. I think it's going to be Cardinals, Brewers, Cubs, or Cardinals. Like those are going to be the top 3 teams in the division. I think that Shohei Ohtani to the Cubs.
That's not this year.
Okay. The Cardinals are obviously going to have to do something about the state of their pitching for years to come. And I think it makes all the sense in the world. They have a surplus of prospects. They're going to have to do something. I think if they do nothing, I don't think these pitching prospects that they currently have on the roster in their AAA, AA, in their farm system are ready at this point. And I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to go out and make a move. Whether they do it or not, again, when you think the Cardinals, you think, I hate to say it, but if you're doing word association, I think cheap comes to mind. So I think they're likely going to be looking for a starting pitcher who has a lot of years of control, or at least a few, and a guy who they can work out a long-term deal with at a reasonable price. And it wouldn't shock me if we hear of a 2-year extension for Michaelis or a 3-year extension for Michaelis. It wouldn't surprise me if they sign Montgomery to a similar type deal, Jordan Montgomery. So extensions could be coming, and I think this is going to be an interesting year for Jack Flaherty as well. And Jack Flaherty's in a contract year, so we'll see what he has to offer. I don't think there's really much chance the Cardinals re-sign Jack Flaherty. I actually think that if Jack Flaherty, and this might be crazy, I think if the Cardinals were smart and proactive, I think Jack Flaherty would be on my list of players to trade away because I don't think he's going to resign. If you can get back a haul for him, I think I would. I think I would be tempted to do that. But I think the Cardinals have to address their pitching need. They have to do it. And I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be next week or next month or, 2 minutes before the trade deadline's over, like it happened last year. But I just hope they don't go the cheap route again. I hope they don't. I know it's been working out for them to do this, but I hope they go out and get a guy who you can pencil in top of the rotation, like a Glasnow, like a Shane Bieber. I hope they don't do what the Cardinals seemingly always do and try to just fill these holes with temporary solutions, because I don't think they can afford to anymore. I think the time has finally run out on them. And I think that it's now time to piss or get off the pot. It's now time. Honestly, if you don't go out and get a starting pitcher, Goldschmidt's getting up there. Might be time to rebuild.
Dude, they have to. I mean, and they're going to.
Yeah.
They can't have all these pieces and not do that.
And it's the Cardinals, man.
I don't
know. You just never know what they're up to. Think of what they've done the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Which they've had a great opportunity to make a big playoff push, right? They traded for John Lester, who I think you and I both really admire John Lester, but he's towards the end of his career, right? They traded for J.A. Happ 2 years ago. Again, similar guy, temporary solution. It worked out, right? It worked out in the short term. Not a long-term solution. Definitely not an ace. They did the same thing this year. They traded for Jose Quintana, who pitched well for them.
Right.
And then let him go in free agency, which makes no sense, but that's the 40th time I've said that. Then they trade for Jordan Montgomery, who has an extra year of control. And that's more of a bigger move but still, it's, as of now, it's a temporary solution as he's not signed past this year.
Yeah.
So I think the $1 million question is, what are those long-term plans? Do they have their eye on, a guy out there in the trade market? Are they going to sign some of these guys to extensions? I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
For the Cardinals, I could, like I said, Montgomery, if I had to make a prediction about the state of their pitching, I would guess that they re-sign Montgomery, because I think he's going to be I don't think he's going to be as expensive as Flaherty. I think Flaherty is gone after this year. I don't think there's any chance that they're going to give him the kind of money that he wants, which also tells me that maybe Flaherty is that ace. Maybe they're looking at Flaherty and going, we think you can bounce back. But in my mind, I don't really think that's a huge gamble to be taking. Huge gamble, considering what we've seen from him the last couple of years. So I think they'll resign Montgomery. I think they'll resign Michaelis. And so those will be the three. But then still, you have holes to fill, which I think they need to do in the form of a trade. So my bold prediction is we resign Miles Michaelis. We resign Jordan Montgomery, and the Cardinals make a trade for a pitcher. I don't know if it's going to be a top of the line pitcher, but they're going to have to do something. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. And that is the show. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom, Mike?
No, I guess it comes back to just being excited. I mean, kind of closing things up, being excited about the state of the Cubs right now. With the Dansby Swanson signing, not a lot of people are talking about the Cody Bellinger thing. It feels like, and I think it's kind of like a forgotten piece. It seems like there are all these little pieces that the Cubs have been adding and doing over the course of time, and they're not like signing a $330 million contract with some guy, but they're little things that are going to turn the tide of where the Cubs are and what they're doing, because they're almost like, oh, okay, but then it's forgettable, like,
Yep.
and I think that those things are going to add up to great things for the Cubs in 2023.
Yeah, and I as much as I talk about it, the Cardinals do have a great team. Like, their team's really good. Are they in this conversation with the Phillies, the Braves, the Mets? No, they're not. They're not that good right now. But they're the best team in their division. And I agree that if you make the playoffs, you got a shot. But I feel like the spending is separating the haves from the have-nots. And I'm worried that I think over time you're going to see the Cardinals become more like the Athletics. Like, they're just not a big market team. And so you're going to have 10 teams that spend a lot of money, and the Cardinals are going to be hovering around 15th, 20th in spending. And maybe I just need to adjust my fandom to fit that. But damn, if that isn't frustrating, to be this close to what you think is a perennial contender with all these younger players, the prime of Goldschmidt and Arenado, the end of Wainwright, Pujols, and Molina. You've had all these years, you've had all these chances to capitalize on that, and it just feels like you're throwing the bare minimum at the fans, who again show up continually again and again and again to watch this team play. And the history of the Cardinals is like elite. It's one of the best franchises in all of baseball, and I feel like it's disrespectful to tell the fans, oh yeah, payroll's going up, and then for it not to go up. Oh yeah, we sat down with Arenado and we got a plan. Okay, because it really feels like you don't have a plan. So it'd be nice to fill us in on if the plan's not to increase the payroll, what exactly is the plan? Because we have one pitcher under contract, and yeah, having Arenado's great, having Goldschmidt's great, but these other teams have Acuna. Just look at the Braves lineup, right? So you're really putting a lot of stock in your younger players, and I really fear that the Cardinals are just putting a product that is gonna just barely please the fans. Like, they're getting to that point where it's just like, we'll just make them happy enough. We're gonna be good enough to get them in. What's the point where we're gonna be good enough to get the fans to come? What's that point? And the Cardinals fans are loyal, so that point is being competitive, winning the National League Central. And I don't know. I really question whether the Cardinals do whatever it takes to win a championship. And to be fair, I don't know if they ever really have made that move in, I don't know, 20 years, but I'm still waiting for it to come.
Sounds like, according to the definition of Outlook Magazine, June 13th, 1923, you got a bunch of rooters. You got a bunch of rooters in St. Louis.
Hey man, we love our baseball in St.
Now
Louis.
the fan may be a rooter, but the rooter is not always a fan. The rooter's out to see his side, college or city, win. The fan is out to see the game.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just saying, Tinkers to Evers to Chance has a great ring to it. Morrell to Swanson to Horner has a great ring to it. Wisdom to Swanson to Horner, that has a great. McKinstry to Swanson to Horner, that has a great ring to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm throwing in third baseman there. I know. Because well, hey, let's do it that way. Swanson to Horner to Bellinger, That has a great ring to it, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah.
I'm wondering about with the Cubs, you know, I throw those third basemen in there because I wonder what we're doing at that position. I don't know if I feel like maybe Christopher Morel may be the third baseman of the future for the Cubs. And so maybe our infield looks like Morel, Swanson, Horner, Bellinger, Happ. Not sure what we're doing in center field. Seiya Suzuki.
Happ is Suzuki is one of your corner outfielders, isn't he?
Yeah, but Happ's out and left. So,
I thought Happ played center field.
No. I'm not sure exactly what our center field projections are. I know we signed a guy to a minor league deal. Anyway, I like the rings of things. I know we're reaching the end of the show, but I guess Bellinger could be in center. I guess Happ could be. Brennan Davis. There you go. Brennan Davis in center. Happ in left. Seiya Suzuki in right. Morel at third. Swanson at short. Horner at second. Bellinger at first. And then
Bellinger can play center, can he?
Huh?
Bellinger can play
center. Yeah. But I honestly think he's going to be our first baseman.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that, but
yeah. So for just as much optimism as Mike have, I equal it out with the pessimism, and we'll see what happens, but I just the Cardinals have been very bland by the trade deadline, and it's worked out for them, if you can count it working out for them, because they haven't really made a playoff push, but it just seems like a team that is a mid-market team that I guess is acting like a mid-market team. I don't know. I don't really buy that either. I think they could spend money, but it just feels like they do just enough to appease the fans, just enough, and they're never willing to do that move. And I'm not saying you got to be the Mets and spend $500 million, but I'm just saying, if the Blue Jays, and I know Toronto's a huge market, if the Cubs are spending more money than you and the Cubs are in a rebuild, I mean, that optically that looks terrible.
Yeah.
So
but when you get deals like I don't know. The Cardinals have this way about getting these incredible players to sign for penance. And I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, the Arenado thing's a mystery to me.
Yeah.
That whole, the trade, the opt-in, like all of it is, I mean, I am happy that he is still on the team, and Goldschmidt. I mean, like I said, they're going to put a good product on the field, but the what if game, like this could be so good, and there, it just feels like, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of feels like that's their attitude. It's like, it's good enough, but it's like, go get what you need. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's the show. We went 2.5 hours. So I hope, if you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, check us out on Spotify, Long Live Baseball on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and wherever you have podcasts that you listen to, we will be there. So for Mike, for myself, thank you so much for watching. Be good, everybody, and go Cardinals, baby. Let's go.
Let's go Cubs.
See you later, everybody. Bye-bye now.